All right, well, I think we're going to get started with our presentation. So if everybody kind of wants to get settled in, I'll get going. First of all, my name is Dennis Harabin. I'm the CEO of Sputter. Todd reached out to me when he was going to put this thing together really quick, and he wanted to know a company that's actually building their business over top of the Google Cloud platform. So we've created our entire company over top of the Google Cloud platform. But before you can really use the Google Cloud, you kind of want to understand how it interacts with Google Apps. You do need an apps account to get started on the Google Cloud, to use Google App Engine, to do other pieces. They announced some things today that they're going to be carving away from that over time. But to get there, so I reached out to who I think is one of the East Coast experts in Google Apps and reached out to Jason to have him come, and we were lucky enough to have him. So he's going to do a big piece of the presentation. I'll just be focusing in on the cloud side.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks so much, and appreciate everyone being here. And thankfully, it doesn't look like there's any protesters in the audience, so I also appreciate that. Needless to say, though, after Dennis and I finish speaking, there might be the opposite reaction, but that's fine. Just as what we were hoping to do today, as Dennis was pointing out, is you really can't use the Google platform without understanding the critical piece to what Google offers, which is what you do for probably your personal and very likely your business too, which is through Google Apps. And we want to talk briefly on the value of Google Apps, and then we're going to talk deeper into thinking beyond Gmail and how businesses look at the Google Apps platform. In particular, I'm going to talk about Google Drive, and which is very topical. If you caught what was mentioned, they're now releasing Google Apps for Business for $10 per user per month with unlimited storage. So that is a significant game changer, especially if you're working with organizations that are considering Box, Dropbox, Ignite, and other applications. And I'm going to talk to some of the business aspects of why Google Apps is so important, especially from a developer standpoint. If you're going to try to make this a lucrative investment for yourselves, then I want to talk to some of the businesses and what they're looking for within the product offerings that you're designing. And then Dennis is going to talk about what his application does with the Google Cloud Platform. And again, all of this ties back to the one single thing you do on your devices, whether you're in Chrome, Safari, Firefox, Internet Explorer, Android, iOS, you authenticate through one thing, and that's your Google Apps account. And that's critical to understand, and it gets overlooked sometimes. When you're searching, it remembers what you're searching. When you're sending communications to businesses or partners, you're still using that same platform. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about how you can do that too, and how you might want to best utilize the platform to your liking. So the value of Google Apps is, this is a message that we send a lot to businesses. The idea of working anywhere with real-time collaboration, high-velocity collaboration, and cross-company sharing. I think it's now on average that 73%. I think it's a Forrester report on mobility that in 2012 they reported that 73% of the workforce is a mobile-ready workforce. That means that people are bringing in the ranges of 3 to 4 devices that they own on their own. It might be a smartphone, a tablet, a computer, multiple computers. So that alone right there, if you're thinking about using a web-based platform, immediately your brain should start registering. Authenticating through the web is absolutely a win for me because I'm going to be accessing this information from multiple devices. And I want to have that same seamless experience. And clearly today in today's keynote, that message was a very strong commitment from the Google team, because they're saying, we want to give you the same experience, not just a smooth experience and not just authenticating to the same files and data, but actually giving you the very familiar experience, whether you're on your Android or iOS device and then jump onto in Chrome. You're going to get that same experience. I think that's really powerful of Google to take that step. A little nervous about how people are going to react to it, but I think that's pretty exciting in all itself. So, we understand it. When businesses are communicating on their devices, they have email, they have contacts, they have calendar, they have Google Hangouts, they're communicating, calling, having video conferences. We all know this. This is what we do every day. The same thing goes for internal communication. As I know some of you are asking questions, there wasn't much talk today about Google+, right? there's a lot of hubbub going on about it because of the people leaving and business partners moving to different parts of the organization. Across the hall, they're talking about Google+, so that's good. There's some Google+ communication. I personally enjoy Google+ for an internal communication within my organization. Today, as I'm learning things and wanting to keep things internally, I send out a post on our Google Cloud community, Google+ community, and we're able to share that internally without having to be concerned about being exposed outside of our domain. Dennis and I were able to do this in 4 days, 5 days, something like that. Okay, we put together, it started off in LinkedIn. Unfortunately, it wasn't Google+, I apologize. But it started in LinkedIn. He said, hey, Jason, are you interested in doing this? I went, what is it? And I read about it, and it sounded really exciting and fantastic. And then over the weekend, here we are collaborating. We did a Google Hangout. We set up this Google presentation, and we started working on it immediately. And that's the power behind this app suite that a lot of us take for granted. And of course, that this continues, right? When you're on your phone and you have another idea, you're working on an agenda or something of that nature, and you're able to access that information and start typing and all those fun things too. And of course, it's the real-time collaboration is truly exercised here with being able to see this. And I think Microsoft finally has this capability, so that's good for them. Now, let's think about beyond Gmail. Okay, so if you're working with organizations from a development standpoint and you're designing applications that you want businesses to access and you're going to be using Google, make the assumption that if you're using the Google Cloud Platform that they are using Google Apps for Business. Make that assumption, okay? I think that is going to be something that's very important to recognize. So if they're using Google Apps for Business, consider what they do on a daily basis. Think about what their business looks like. Now, unfortunately, a lot of times, and I'm hoping that today's announcement about the unlimited storage is going to change a lot of minds, but this is kind of what people are looking at like right now in the Google ecosystem for business. We sell them on the idea of this platform that's amazing, and there's just wonderful things you could do with Cloud Platform and Google Plus and Hangouts, but realistically, if it's not implemented correctly, if there is not a true deployment that focuses on education and integration and understanding what the platform can do and communicate with, people are really just doing what they were doing with their Exchange server, which is they're accessing email, they're setting up calendar invites, and they're occasionally doing things with Drive. In fact, I wouldn't even be surprised if you could take away Drive to some extent too. I work with a lot of large organizations with thousands and thousands of employees who didn't even know that there was such a thing called Drive. In fact, I'll ask them that, and they say, oh, I use that with my personal account. And they don't even realize they have access to this type of collaboration and sharing capabilities. And so that's my fault. I look at that as my fault. My responsibility is to educate, is to emphasize the importance of this information and constantly provide intelligence, updates, things of that nature regarding this solution. So this is more of what we see in the Google Apps platform, right? You see a lot of familiar icons here, Chrome in particular. And some people see them as one single idea. Whereas all of you, I'm hoping, see this, right? You see a smorgasbord of opportunities. You see endless opportunities for people to be communicating, collaborating, integrating with each other nonstop. It's unreal. I can't wait till you get to hear what Dennis is doing, taking advantage of this, the application suite. It's brilliant. Okay? So what went wrong, right? Why are people not taking advantage of this? If they were sold on it, they make the commitment. They did this giant switch, right? They said, we're going Google. They had T-shirts, they had buttons, and people walking around, and they looked all googly, and they wore blue and red and yellow, and it was so neat. And then we go back to the other slide, and you just see mail, calendar, contacts, blah, boring, 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 right? So why? Interestingly enough, the team at BetterCloud, if you're familiar with FlashPanel, that application, they put together a survey with all of their customer base in terms of how people are using and adopting the Google Apps over I think it's a 3-year period, a 3-year period. Interestingly enough, Google Docs outranks chat. I found that very interesting. And I found it interesting because businesses that have Google Chat enabled, or Google Hangouts now, if you will, are using that is replacing the getting up and walking over to a desk, right? People are saying, hey, can you just send me the link? Hey, what's going on today? Hey, did you see that, Charles passed gas? Things like that, right? People are communicating. But the fact that Docs is being used is very interesting to me. It might be the Google Drive sync, which I don't necessarily recommend ever using. It may be people are creating or storing or accessing files and different data points. But that gives me encouragement that as people grow, and if you notice right here, these are the 2+ year adoption rate, that they're almost at 75% using Google Docs. So that's a good start. I would like to see it out the gate, but maybe that's not feasible all the time. The reason being, I think, is that people just simply don't know what they don't know. I hear customers say this to me all the time. They don't know what they don't know. I have businesses that say, oh, hey, Jason, I just purchased a new SSO solution. And I said, oh, great. Like, what other solutions were you looking at before you made your choice? He's like, oh, I just bought into it. I went, oh, fantastic. I'm glad that we, haven't learned anything. Good. So people, they don't know what they're looking for. They don't know what they know. It's our job as developers, as educators, as believers in the Google Apps platform to continuously and constantly preach the information, let people know what's going on about Google Apps, and giving ideas, using real-life human problems, day-to-day business situations. That's why you have to use this platform, because of X, because of Y, because of Z. And I think it's really important for all of us to jump on that and do that. So today we're going to look at this smorgasbord of information and focus primarily on Drive. At least that's what I'm going to talk on. So I'm willing to say now, especially after the announcement today about $10 per user per month for Google unlimited storage. Now that's across the entire Google App Suite. That gets me borderline awkward excited about that opportunity for businesses. So I'm going to definitely say that the opportunity now is easily argued that we can replace those on-premise file servers with Google Drive. And there are ways to do it. I don't recommend that you jump right into it and just move everything. That's just as silly as saying we're going cloud, so we're going to make a copy of our application in the cloud. Huzzah, right? No, you want to optimize. You want to make sure that build it right the first time. So then you can continue to iterate and make it better and better and better. So let's talk a little bit about the file server annoyances, right? You have patching, you have redundancy replication, you have storage arrays and VPN access, which is, Nightmare on Elm Street Part 15, right? People are trying to access this information, and you get the paint screen sometimes. Sometimes it's okay, but some people have terrible connections. Some people have decent connections. If you have people that are working in multiple continents, you have one person that has a great connection trying to communicate with someone else who has a horrible connection. It's a waste of time, right? And it's an annoyance. So this would be the idea, right? The dream scenario, right? Shut down that computer, shut down that file server, make that closet into a coat rack. Everyone's happy that you can take their jackets off at the office. They're no longer on the back of the chair, and they've moved to the cloud. So with Drive, though, there are some other things to consider. With Google Drive as a file server, you think of the Drive mentality as saying, let's share among small teams. Let's search, not browse. Let's let users manage sharing. Okay, well, this is good for a very small organization, primarily personal use as well. But it might not, and it works well for an organization like Google, where that is their mentality. That is how they work, and they collaborate and integrate with each other. But let's face it, there are organizations that have been around for a lot longer than Google, and they have different procedures in place, different policies, different ways of thinking. So an IT manager, for example, they want to manage permission centrally, right? They don't want you to have the control. They don't want their staff to be able to say, I will decide today that you have access to this. They don't want that. They figure that without structure, there's chaos. This morning, actually, I was thinking about that one statement. This morning, I realized that I forgot to roll up all my socks. So I had all the right socks in a drawer, except they weren't all together. And that's kind of like what Google Drive is with your organization if you don't have some type of structure. It's all there, you can find it, but you really have to know what you're looking for. I think I want to use this Reebok sock with this Reebok sock, but I don't know where this Reebok sock is, so Nah, it took me about 10 minutes to find my sock. I was very frustrated. Anyhow, and then sometimes you need to browse. You don't want to search, right? You never want to sort, yeah. So anyhow, the idea of why can't we just collaborate that, right? Why can't we put both of those theories together? Why can't we have the interesting and exciting aspects of Google Drive, which is this, powerful search engine. Google happens to know a few things about search, and collaborating real time, accessing things seamlessly. Why can't we have that same idea, but then integrate it with some of the old, more familiar infrastructure policies? I think we can. So let's talk about folder structures and naming conventions. Let's talk about managing permissions through role-based permissions. Well, this is very important in this whole idea of how to best utilize Google Drive for your organization and how to implement a root folder. Our organization does this, and I'm telling you, it's not very sexy, it's not very fun, but it blew my mind because it's so simple, okay? And we'll talk about a few other odds and ends before we move on. So one folder to rule them all. This is exactly what our organization does. This is what we advocate, and this is what we ask other organizations to do when we set up strategic planning. One root folder. Now, this isn't a very new idea. It seems like a new idea when you're thinking about Google Drive. When if you work in an organization of any size, you probably have like an F drive, right? And that F drive is the end-all, be-all. That's where the stuff is. Whether you access it or you access it or you access it, it all goes back to the F drive. And there's all kinds of subfolders and such that act to that. Well, why can't you do that in Google Drive? You create an admin account, not a human account, an admin account that is designed to only do one thing, host that root folder. And so that admin account then hosts that root folder, and you give access to that root folder to the entire organization. Very simple to do, and that's how you roll it out. And then we'll talk a little bit further what you can do from there. So, like I said, non-human. Have that have that folder owned by that account is authenticated through an admin account only, non-human. Everyone in the org can view, and only the owner can edit it. This is very important too. This makes sure that chaos doesn't slip in there. This provides you that ability to just truly take advantage of the same type of policies that you would have in a larger organization that has a server closet. And only that owner can actually change permissions too. So that's really good too, and that helps with onboarding and offboarding. We'll talk about that. So in Drive, the world is flat. This is my CEO, Michael Sputter, said that, and it kind of blew my mind a little bit because I thought at first, oh, that sounds negative. The world is flat. But it's a positive thing. It's a great thing because it's all about searching, right? This is what you're used to seeing, right? This is the F drive. So acme.local/shared/subfolder/subfolder, blah, right? That's what it looks like, okay? Well, with Drive, think about this whole flat file system. You want to have that one root folder, and then all of your quote-unquote subfolders are then attached to it as well. And some of you may be looking at me going, this is sounds like a lot of work. You're kind of crazy. I wish I went to the other session. How do I get up quickly without being rude? All right, but here, let me give you one example that's going to change your mind about that. When you search in a flat folder structure, if you look up reports, okay? If you're using a flat folder structure and you look up reports and you have a naming convention that makes sense, if you want to, in a flat folder structure, you have a marketing folder, you have a sales folder, you have a business development folder. And if you call it business development reports, sales reports, marketing reports, and you do a search for reports, you're going to find what you're looking for a lot faster. If you do this in a traditional file structure and you search for reports, you're going to find a whole slew of folders that says reports. Now this makes a whole lot of sense if you're using the F drive, because you're going to see that it's going to give you the path. If you're using a Mac or a PC and you're looking at your file structure, you're going to see the path. So when you get to reports, that makes a lot of sense. But again, we're in a flat file structure. So there is no subfolder. You're not going to see the path. It's going to take you directly to that search result and not give you the answer you're looking for, making it harder and more frustrating to find that information. Okay? And the same thing goes with file names. Don't just call it proposal, because you're going to find 100,000 proposals. Name that using a naming convention for proposals that's relative to the customer, relative to what the proposal is for, and then calling a proposal sounds like an IT nightmare because it's like, oh man, that's like a whole lot of characters in a one short name. That's okay. When you're searching for something, that's going to make it a lot easier to find that. Okay? Everyone with me? No one sleeping? All right. Say that one more time?
Have different names.
Yes, absolutely. So for example, if I'm looking through my sales proposals, okay, I'm in the sales folder, I'm in the proposals folder, and then I want to go by customer name. And then in that customer name folder, you'll see the different proposals relevant to whether it's a customer support proposal, a Google Apps proposal, a cloud proposal. I want to give Sputter $1 million proposal. Those are good ones too, et cetera, et cetera. So let's talk a little bit more about now that you have the file structure down and the folder structure down, let's talk about role-based permissions. This is so key. And this helps when you're working with an organization. If you've ever been an IT administrator, you know how critical it is to understand how role-based works. And the same thing applies with Google Drive. So beforehand, it used to be that, okay, I'm going to give like 5 different people access to this information, then they can choose to do whatever they want, and they can share it, et cetera, et cetera. No, that's not how we want to do it. What we want to do is through Google Groups is actually create role-based groups, so the admin would actually do that and design teams through groups specific for Google Drive folders. So for example, you'll have a sales role, you'll have a marketing role, you'll have an executive role. And each one of those roles will automatically distribute the share to those different files and folders that they should have access to. So that means that if you're in sales and you're in marketing, and then you go to the marketing folder, you're not going to have access to it. You'll see the folder, but you won't have access to any of the information. Vice versa. Okay? And why is this so important? Because people come and go in business. Rather than focusing on the individual users, focus on the roles. You're always going to have a sales department. You're always going to have a marketing department. So as people come and go, assign them a role. And then when they leave, because you're using this root folder, you're not losing all the documents. You don't have to go through the, transfer this to who and what, and then you get all the weird pictures of the kids, and you don't want that. Make the information focused about the business. Okay, so faster employee onboarding, we talked about that. Cleaner permissions, which is wonderful. And then use the restricted Google role-based groups, which is really helpful a lot. Okay, so this is what it would look like. And I can attest, we use it ourselves at our organization. It's fantastic. And we sit down with organizations, we strategize on how to make this work for them too, and it really works for them. It's different for everybody, but the general concept is the same. And this is how you make Google Drive a file server. It's not that complicated. And once it's implemented, it is fantastic. And for $10 a user a month now, you have unlimited storage. So if you're a marketing company and you have terabytes and terabytes of files that you need to store and share and have access to quickly from any device, access anywhere, anytime, well, hey, that's pretty affordable. And if you have a file structure like this, hey, that's pretty easy to access. I'm in. All right, and just a couple of quick odds and ends here. This is kind of nice when you're onboarding people to your organization. Just make a short URL for the link to the drive itself, and then send that off in a welcome email and template and things like that so people can bookmark it and go there. But then also recommend through policy and training that they should add that root folder to their My Drive. And this is the most important part for developers. If you're developing anything that relates to Google Drive, as you all know, when you have, I would say most commonly, when things directly attach to Google Drive, like let's say you're using Basecamp and it links up to Google Drive, it's going to very quickly find your My Drive. But it's not going to find all that other stuff that you might use as well. But if you add that root folder to your My Drive, it's going to see it right away, quickly search, quickly access. Excellent, good news. All right, so that's pretty much the sum of the actual creating a file server. But don't forget now, if you're using a file server and you're working for a larger organization, Chromebook suddenly becomes a lot more interesting. I have a Chromebox that I use almost exclusively at the office, and because we have this file server infrastructure, everything I do is through my Chromebox. It's awesome. Everything is accessible on my phone, on my iPad, at home, it doesn't matter. I don't have to worry about whether, if there's a power down or anything like that. I'm always up and running. That's pretty compelling. So, and then Chromebooks are really cheap. So if you happen to know a couple of CEOs that are looking to buy some new computers, if you tell them you can buy the price of 5 for the price of 1 old school, yeah. Anyway, so and there it is. That's my standing desk. There's my Chromebox. Yay. All right, good. And, I even drew an arrow. That's my Chromebox. Okay, great. So now I'm going to hand it over to Dennis, and he's going to talk about how he uses Google Cloud Platform. Thank you.
So as far as getting into, we do, just so you know a little bit more about Sputter, we are a virtual organization built completely over the Google Apps platform to begin with. We did have a situation this weekend where in getting ready to take out that we had to do some stuff with the SSL. It's kind of technical thing that we had to run through, but we migrated our entire organization, 18,000 or 20,000 emails, 10,000 or 1,000 files, everything else. I did it myself over the weekend while going out with my family and having a decent weekend. So I mean, it's amazing what you can do if you use the Google platforms. Did a full migration, did everything. Wasn't happy I had to do it, but people from Mountain View heard a mouthful about it. But we went through and we did it all, and you can do it in a weekend. So when you really implement it, that's something. There's none of us. I have a developer that was from Stevens.
From what platform did you?
Oh no, within Drive, within Google, we were able to do a migration. But you actually use a Microsoft Exchange tool to do it. So it would have been the same if I was on Exchange, except the Exchange piece would have been a nightmare part. The bringing it into the Drive part is simple. So I have developers that just graduated from Stevens who I was just going through like where my team is located. My CFO is down in Charlotte, North Carolina. My head sales guy is down in Tampa, Florida. Our CTO is in the UK. I have a great developer out of Philly, and my other really good developer who just graduated Stevens, I don't even know where he lives. I don't even know. I was just trying to figure it out. I'm like, I don't know where he lives. He lives somewhere in Jersey. So, I mean, we are completely on the cloud. So what is Sputter? What Sputter is think of it as sports updates, like Twitter for sports. So what we're doing is we're creating a specific platform just for amateur athletics. So what we do is we've built a tool that helps amateur athletics to fundraise. So we have a couple main groups that we work with. So basically on the sports side, a SPUD is a sports update. So you kind of think of it like a tweet. So what we do is we're sucking down all the Instagram, we're sucking down all the Twitter aspects. So the sports that matter most to you, you can get World Cup shit out the window with Google having everything. You know, you can get NFL, you can get big college. But to the sports that matter most to you, to your kid's soccer game, the 8-year-old soccer game, you can't be there right now, you don't know. You're looking at your grandkids. To get those updates, to get those pieces. And the update isn't just the score itself or what's happening or who scored the goal, but if you want to see images of your child that you can see them on people that you follow, you can see your friends, but what about the people on the other team who took a really great picture or who had a really great piece or a video clip? You'll be able to see all of that. And rather than us monetize it, kind of like a Facebook would or Twitter's trying to monetize it, we actually create, each individual team gets their own page. So we're providing this content as a tool for them to help them fundraise. Because VH1 did something way back, Save the Music. If you go out and hear about Dick's Sporting Goods and some of the other things, amateur athletics is actually in danger. That Dick's is doing a whole thing. It's how sports matter and how it pieces. But by 2027, they say 34% of all high schools will no longer have athletics. You know, it's pay to play. There's a whole reason why sports got expensive. It's crazy and everything else. But part of what we're doing is, by 2016, we're not going to be focused on social. And that's why we're working a lot with Google and doing these pieces. You just saw Google, they just announced about Google Fit. We're going to be doing sensors. We project that we'll have more sensor-driven SPUDs than social-driven SPUDs. So Johnny could be wearing his Nike Fit or Nike, they all have different names, I forget which one Nike is. But as they put in the Nike band, he can be wearing that playing soccer. The coach doesn't have to know that he's got an asthma condition, doesn't have to know that he has a heart condition. But what can happen is the Fit will tell, through Bluetooth, the Fit will tell the coach, take him out. Something's wrong, you know, before there's an accident, before he dies on the field, before one of those things happen. So that's the sensors, and those are the pieces that we're doing. So we work with a number of groups. So we are the entire sports ecosystem. So we have fans, we have players, we have coaches, we have visitors, we have venues, we have the teams, and then to monetize it for the teams, we have what we call our Spud Mart, which is through Amazon. So Mike, we're not just Google, we just happen to use Google a lot because it has some really good tools, but we are the main, our Sputter platform is on Amazon because the Google Wallet isn't that great. So these are the platforms that we work with. So we have, we use Amazon Payments, and right now we're using Parse for mobile because before Facebook bought them, it was the best platform out there. They had a lot of stuff going. And so getting into each, why do we use Amazon Payments? Most trusted platform in the world. We can have it as a marketplace. We can just plug it in. Anyone who's starting a startup nowadays and doesn't really comprehend and understand platform as a service and infrastructure as a service, you're not going to survive. You got to rely on these big guys because they built the tools. They built it all for you. If you try to build something to compete, we're not going to build a social app. Twitter, Instagram, why bother? We just have hashtag Sputter, suck it all in. This is Parse. This is why we didn't build a mobile application. This is why I use platform as a service. I'm not putting that together. I mean, I plug into that in a day. And what happens is this is the actual Parse while they were on Amazon. This is why I went with Parse. They moved it to Facebook, and it's not like that anymore. It's screwed up. So I was talking actually last week with the Kratos team over at Google. They are going to be building a mobile application piece similar to Parse. I can assure you that logo is probably going to change, but it's basically going to plug into the cloud platform. And for those who don't know Parse is really the mobile stack. The Google Cloud Platform, and what they talk about is more your traditional stack, your back-end stack, the whole mobile stack that'll work and play. Obviously, they focus on Android today. The next piece is being friendly with iOS, what I call iCrap, because you can't play well, it doesn't play well with others. So they have to make something special to play well with iCrap. So, and that's the piece that they're working on, is getting something so that you can work with Windows, all the other things, and not just the Android. Android plugs, you can see what they're talking and stressing. Android just plugs in. That's a no-brainer. Chrome just plugs in, but they are working on some things to play well with others. So this is the actual Sputter development platform. I mean, these are all our different projects that we have. So this is on the cloud. These are the different applications that we run to bring our infrastructure together. And the reason I highlight this, and we can dig into as deep a dive as anyone wants, but we actually, each developer has their own development server set up, their own version. Then we roll into a test version, then we roll into a live version. We set these up in matters of minutes. I mean, I don't know how long people were setting up their development shops and running it and doing this. I hear what these companies are doing and what time they take and the crap they put out. I don't get it. Because with Google's cloud platform, you spin it up literally in a matter of minutes. You can spin up the new version, roll your code, they just rose push to deploy. I think they showed you how you can debug on the fly. I mean, if you're not on these cloud platforms, it makes development 1/10 the time. So this is live. This is our actual piece. So analytics are right there. I mean, you can see what's going on. This is the actual overview of our cloud platform. So you can get into what's running, where the mistakes are, where the errors. So one big thing to kind of talk about, I think some people are trying to understand or may or may not. I know Todd wanted to just keep it on the top side, so don't know the depth of everyone's knowledge into the development pieces. The App Engine was their original platform. It is kind of limiting, I will tell you that. It's built a little bit, it's a lot older than their new compute system, and for some of it, you have to play Google's way. I mean, Google builds it the most optimal way, and there are some limits. You need to build it Google's way. But it's a full platform as a service. As I talked about, Snapchat grew to the billions of users that they have without a single DevOps developer, without anyone back-end managing. It just scales. It just grows. You just increase what your budget, what you're going to pay, and it handles it all for you. So the App Engine's very clean and very nice, and they've been building it and working in enhancements on the App Engine. But then you have your Google Compute. Google Compute is just a VM. It is a virtual machine that you throw up in a Linux box, just like anything else. I mean, it's something that you would have, 10 years ago, it would have been in a rack costing you thousands and thousands of dollars. You know, with VMware, it came down. Now, within minutes, and if we have time, I'll throw a couple up. You can throw up a VM in a matter of seconds, and you basically don't pay for it until you hit a certain threshold. You know, the pricing has just gotten ridiculous. If you have an enterprise platform like I have, I don't even think about the price. So, and they're always giving out coupons, $500 for this, $500 for that. So, I mean, you basically, the cost of the computing doesn't even factor into my considerations. I consider a lot more my API pull costs than I do my computing costs, because they're obsolete anymore. So then getting into the developer's platform, you really, you know, we're building in and we dwell well in, and we, like I said, I like to use the App Engine because it digs in, and I don't have a DevOps team. I don't intend to have one anytime soon, because we can handle it mostly on our own. So the other piece, though, that I want to show you is that this is all new. I mean, this is all transitioning. Some of the stuff you'll still even pull up old dashboards. So here's your error log on App Engine. You log in a second time. Sometimes you see that where you dig. So I mean, they're still replicating it out to the servers. I know I get some advanced stuff that the cloud platform, because I go to the platform live and I go to the different events. So just like anything else, they're still rolling it out. So if you're a major company, you're still probably 6 months out before they have everything stabilized. But they've been buying. This is where they're going. I mean, search is over for them. They know that. They want to basically be the back end of the internet and where things are going. So this is where all their money's going. This is where all their time's going. This is where their efforts are going. And it translates and changes every time I log in. It's gotten better. And they're buying the right companies, as I showed. So you get right into the reporting, and all this level is right there. Pick your application, devs in, and doesn't take much thoughts at all. So, but there are some important tips. When you're going in, because it is all built, Google has that single domain approach. So I'm assuming a lot of startups are here, and a lot of the New Jersey tech community, a lot of startups and what they're doing. A lot of people work on multiple domains. That is not something that Google has really thought through or is very thorough with. That's the reason why I had to migrate something over a weekend. They make it easy, but you can only get an SSL on the actual root cause domain. So you can, in the Google Apps, but you don't want to do it yourself, but you can actually put in multiple domains, or you can alias the domains. Even if you put in multiple layered domains when you're managing the apps, and I call apps the key to the kingdom. Basically, it's all the security and all the stuff that you don't need as a company and as a CEO. That's why I don't care where my developer that I know, I met on my interview and stuff, I can turn them off in 2 seconds. I have no risk. I changed the password to his email, and he can't access shit. So I don't know where he lives. I don't care where he lives. I mean, I can turn that off in a second. So the key to the kingdoms, and I track anything he's done, and I can see anything he's done. So the level, how it brings down the price and how it brings down your costs as a startup to be able to put together a company, and how to be able to put all this stuff that companies are spending, you know, your competitor at a big company is spending hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. You don't have to waste your time spending because they don't have this. But when you're setting up the domain structure, and when you're setting up the individual domains, and when you're putting in the apps, that was the reason I brought Jason in to explain. You want to have someone like his organization, you want to have these pieces because you've got to really understand apps in order for the cloud piece to work well. Otherwise, the cloud piece, there's pieces that will sting you down the road hard if you're not built over the right apps structure and the domain structure. So I'm going to let Jason get back, and we'll just wrap it up with any questions and let you deep dive whatever you need to know.
Thank you very much. That's awesome. Being able to have just the idea alone of being able to monitor and report and audit from a coaching standpoint, from a parental standpoint, that's the kind of stuff that just gets me crazy jazzed up. But so just to summarize what we've talked about before we go into a Q&A, you see the picture, you know, it starts with apps. Dennis really drove that home too, and it just continues to expand. The question is sometimes though, you know, where do you start? There is a lot that Google offers. I mean, how many product releases did we see in 3 kind of short hours? That was unbelievable. What was it? Wear, TV, Chromebooks, apps, all the above. No glass. Anyway, all that was happening, but all that's being delivered to you. So the question is, it does get a little confusing. Where do you start? So I recommend that you pick your process. Be very strategic about this, or work with an organization that does provide strategy sessions, right? The idea is you want to choose by department. Maybe it's production, maybe it's customer service, order fulfillment, or maybe financial controls, etc. And more importantly, I wanted to point out, this is how we develop ideas for organizations. It starts right here. We either use something like Lucidchart, or we'll actually just print out a whole bunch of connectors and actions, and we start writing out, start to finish where we want to go, and pin it up onto a wall and try to figure out what we're trying to accomplish here. And when you're doing that, make sure that you start to look at yourself as the customer. I think that's really critical. If you want to develop an application or do a project or even some type of process, take you out of it and look at, who are you trying to accomplish this for? And what are their values? Sometimes when you have a process in place that you're trying to implement, thinking about what's important to them changes why this process is important a lot of the times. I've worked with organizations that were on Exchange servers, and they were using Outlook. And as they were using Outlook and I was trying to understand a little bit more about their organization, I thought it was ridiculous because they had this whole process in place about color coding that was available within Outlook itself. So if they received a certain email, they would color code it. And the entire department, by themselves, decided this color coding scheme. The IT department didn't know about it. The executive team didn't know about it. It just kind of existed. But it was working for like 5 years, okay? It worked for them. That when we were moving to Google Apps, it was a little complicated because we didn't know how to adapt that. But then we sat down with them and understand what they were trying to accomplish. Why were they color coding? What was the output of that color code? And that allowed us to understand a better way of designing a process around to make that even better, a better experience. Because with Google Apps that type of experience is easily accessible to you better, something that's trackable, recordable, and reportable. And then what are the steps? Even if you don't have an actual process written down, you still have to get from A to Z somehow. And map that out. Try to figure out, where is it? And then how do we add more value to that, of course, right? If you're designing an application for someone, for specific people, think about what Dennis had to go through to understand the whole idea of people that monitor sports, period, and churn all that information. That's why he has coaches. That's why he has parents, the actual athletes themselves, recruiters, all these people together. They're all in the same ecosystem together, but they all have different values. And that's so important to understand where those pieces fit in and why it's important. Because for each one of those individuals, it's a completely different experience, and there's different reasons why they want that. So consider that when you're developing something. And then, the hows, that's the other part too. When you're actually designing the process from A to Z, don't forget to then go back, rinse and repeat, add the conditioner, whatever you need to do, figure out the actual hows. How is that going to be accomplished? So, if done correctly, you'll have, operational efficiency, operational effectiveness, which then gives you that return on your investment that you want, right? And that's the kind of language that you need to be preaching to the businesses that you're working on. They're going to invest in your product. They need to know what is the return. What are they going to get from it? And it's important. I do it all the time with Google Apps. People are still, there's naysayers. They're like, everything works fine. I don't mind. I got a license agreement anyway with Exchange, or I'm using some other hosted service and it's doing me just fine. Okay, well that's fine. But what are you doing to do better, right? What are you missing? Have you spoken to your teams, your departments? What are they lacking? What are they doing? Why are they using personal Dropbox accounts to share information so they can work from home? That's kind of the new USB drive, right? Et cetera, et cetera. Think like that with the organizations you're trying to have your products relate to. Okay, that's it. I I appreciate everyone's time, and we just wanted to open up for questions if anyone has specific questions.